Welcome to another broadcast of Habits and Money.
When you become an influencer, it gives you the edge that separates you from the competition. The GIP initiative, the Global Influencers Partners Program, is designed to expose you to over 5 billion potential consumers across the world. When you are a rising star in business and you need visibility, reach, impact, client conversion, and cash flow optimization, positioning yourself to become a global influencer may be the ideal tool that you need in your arsenal to win in business. I encourage you to join the GIP initiative and position your business to build confidence, trust, and credibility and cash flow optimize the fastest.
Now, in the event that you're looking at this program for the first time and you're asking yourself, what exactly is the objective behind Habits and Money? Well, what we have learned is that many people and persons in the world, you want to position yourself financial greatness in business and in life. And it all depends on the right habits. So on this platform, we expose you to great thinkers and great leaders from across the world who will help you to learn what are their habits, what are their stepping stones, what are their pathways to success. So you now can apply some of those principles to position yourself for greatness in business and finance and in life. Today, I have a very dynamic personality in studio who definitely has a lot of great habits that I believe can transform your life. His name is Terryl Humphrey, and he loved to share, he loved to help, inspire, and empower people. So without further delay, do join me in welcoming Terrell Humphrey. Terrell, how are you, my friend?
Hey, what's going on, Gary? Man, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm good. How are you?
I am phenomenal. And I must say it's a tremendous pleasure to be talking with you today, because if you think that that was a warm introduction, I'm just getting warm up. Because when I look when I look at your bio, I see you have an associate degree in media production. You're the brain behind FIK Advertising Corp, and we'll talk about the significance of FIK. You have been in business for over a decade, over 10 years.
Half a decade.
And half of a decade, good. And you have also been a Marine Corps veteran. But that's not all. I mean, even while you serve as a Marine Corps, you took the time to produce over 800 podcasts. My friend, you got a lot going on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, man, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Let us start. You are the founder of FIK Advertising Corp. Can you talk to us about the significance of FIK? Then I want us to look at your history as a Marine Corps veteran. What is the significance behind FIK? What does it mean?
Man, that is a great question. First, I want to say thank you for the introduction. The introduction was spotless, man. Like that was amazing. That was amazing. So to answer,
you deserve it. You deserve it. Anyone who served deserve that and so much more, right?
I appreciate it, Gary. I appreciate it. Thank you again for inviting me to this wonderful platform. I love the brand. I love the podcast. I love what you're doing. And to answer your question about the acronym FIK and where it came from. So essentially, when I grew up in a single parent household, my mama, she raised 3 boys by herself. And as we was growing up and learning more about ourselves, not only was she able to show us that she can do it, that she can survive, that we can survive, but we was making it from nothing. We were surviving. When nothing appeared to be more, it appeared to be more because my mama didn't give up. My mama didn't quit. My mama didn't quit on us, and she found a way to make it through even when the hard times was coming about. And so as I'm growing up and I start to learn more about life, I started learning more how to be a man. I started learning more about myself. I'm like, my mama actually been through a lot, because if you really like understand being grown and having your own things and paying bills, that's a lot that she had to do. Not only did she have to take care of herself, but she had to take care of 3 boys. And so where the terminology of failure knowledge came from was the fact that she didn't give up. She has 9 different degrees. That's a lot of school. That's a lot of school. That's a lot of tests. That's a lot of information that you have to intake. The fact that she didn't give up showed me that when you continue to push through your journey and you continue to learn, you're not only failing, but you're learning how to grow. You're learning how to gain the knowledge, because the knowledge is just saying, I'm taking this first step. And as I'm taking this first step, I'm able to develop. As I take this next step, I'm able to grow. As I'm taking this third step, I'm able to learn. So in order to have knowledge, you have to have failure. You have to be willing to fail at something so you can learn how to gain this knowledge. So that's where the acronym or the premises of failures and knowledge came from. It all started from my mama because she didn't give up on herself. She didn't give up on us, and she made a way when there was a way that when there wasn't a way to be made.
Wow, wow. I love the term FIK, failure is knowledge, but I love even more the fact that you spoke about your mom. And I think the story of your mom represents so many mothers across the world. And mothers has a way in making the impossible possible. And they have a way, of really bringing out the Hercules within, all right? And I really love how you describe your mom, a true representation of motherhood. I want us to talk a little bit about your experience. I mean, through all your hardship, you grew up, thank God for mom. Mom did a good job. But you went into the Marine Corps and you served in the Marine Corps. What was that experience like for you?
Man, it was an experience. It was an experience because it taught me to learn more about myself. Even though I was serving the country, I had to find a way to serve myself. I had to find a way to learn more about myself. So when I joined the Marine Corps, before I joined the Marine Corps, I was working at Walmart. I was working in the produce section. And what I learned while working at Walmart is that one, I was able to move around in different departments. First, I was cashier, and then I was car pusher, then I was an electronic associate, then I went to produce associate. So I was able to develop within Walmart, but you can only grow so much within Walmart. So one day when I was working in the produce area, and as I came out, it was probably 4 o'clock in the morning. As it's 4 o'clock in the morning, nobody's there. The store's empty, and you just stocking the shelves. And I've been doing it for maybe a year or so. But as I'm doing it, I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't see myself here. I don't see myself here for the next 20 years because even though Walmart is a great opportunity, I have to figure out what I want for myself. And so one day the thought came about, like, what if I joined the military? What if I joined the Marine Corps? And so my coworker, she ended up talking to a recruiter, and she got to talking to him. She was speaking to him, and then she ended up going to the boot camp, do a boot camp. And so as she was telling me about the Marine Corps, I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about what I was getting myself into, what I needed to do, what it would take from me, and the work that I would have to do. I just wanted more. When I stepped out on the floor at Walmart, putting the food on the shelves, I stepped out looking for more, but I stepped inside looking at myself, looking what more was. And so I spoke with the recruiter, and when I spoke with the Marine Corps recruiter, he opened my eyes up because it wasn't necessarily about traveling, about going to a different place, about making money. It was just about seeing what more was. And so when I spoke with him, he showed me that they had like 8 different things that they go through, like 8 different questions they ask, like, what do you want? They put it on the table. Do you want leadership? Do you want to travel? Do you want to make more money? Do you want to retire? Do you want to have a retirement plan? So he put it on the table, but I picked the traveling because I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm from a small town, and I haven't traveled that much, but I picked traveling. In all actuality, I wasn't picking traveling. I was picking more. And so when I went to boot camp, it became open. It came open to me. It got introduced to me that there's different people that's coming from different areas in the world that's coming to one place to train to be a Marine Corps, to be a Marine. And when I learned that everyone is trying to better themselves because they're here, how can I continue to find out what more was? So the reason why I say it was an experience, because it was an experience for me to find myself. It was an experience for me to develop personally. As I'm developing personally, I have to learn that if I continue to put myself out there, there's going to be opportunities that can come from me, that can come for me because I'm putting myself in different places. I'm putting myself in different situations. I'm putting myself in different environments. I'm able to see that the Marine Corps opened doors because it opened my life to me finding more about myself. I think you mute.
And I do believe finding more of yourself is so important because so many persons go through life lacking a sense of self. And when you lack a sense of self, you lack a sense of purpose. When you lack a sense of purpose, you lack a sense of direction. I do believe that you have made a lot of smart and wise choices in your life. And, looking at you, you can see that you're the product of all of those smart decisions that you would have made. I also want to talk a little bit about you worked at Walmart. And I do believe that is, without a doubt, the biggest supermarket that we have in the world. And to have been in that organization, to I've learned from it, I too believe that, you are definitely a heavyweight in terms of, all of that experience. I can recall when I was studying business many years ago, and we learned that Walmart, employed over 2 million persons, the collective. And some countries don't even have 1 million persons. But here you have a giant like Walmart employing over 2 million persons, and being among the highest income earners among companies in the world. So I love that bit of history. We will perhaps come back to the Marine Corps in a while, because I know before you exit the Marine Corps, you had some significant things happening for you while you were in the Marine Corps, and that surrounds the podcast, a whole lot of what you're doing right now. But just before we get back to that, I want us to come back to FIK Advertising Corp. What I've learned is that a large part of what you do at FIK Advertising Corp, it's about helping people, and you focus a lot on personal development, which I do believe in today's world it is vital. Or you may have the academic, but if you don't have the personal skills and development, it undermines your ability to apply yourself. So I'm happy that you're doing that. You also focus on the marketing, and you also focus a lot on podcasts. Can we take them step by step to really help us to understand FIK and how FIK is designed to impact people's lives? Let's start with personal development.
Okay. So to start with personal development, in 2022, I went through a divorce. And when I went through a divorce, I experienced something that I've never dealt with. Even though I was raised by a single mom and I didn't have a dad figure in my life, I was looking for it. And it was hard for me to go through the divorce, because I had to be the one to go through it. As I was growing up, my mama had to be the one to take care of 3 boys. So it wasn't necessarily that hard for me per se. It was more hard for my mother, because she was the one going for it. And so as I went through the divorce in 2022, not only was it hard for me, but I had to learn how to deal with it myself. Even though if I try to go asking for help, asking for guidance, go to therapy, I have to be willing to start with myself. So what the divorce did to me is that it taught me that when you learn more about your pain, when you learn more about what you're going through, you start to recognize the trauma that you've been suppressing your entire life. And as I was growing up, my mama, she taught 3 boys that to hold your feelings in. I used to be a crybaby when I was younger. Like, I used to cry a lot. And she often tell me, like, son, stop crying. Son, stop crying. Like, you're not supposed to cry. So you continue to hear that as you're growing up. And as you're growing up, it's like, what are you supposed to do when your feelings is hurt? So rather than me expressing my feelings were suppressed, because I was taught how to hold your feelings in. And so when I went through this divorce, it taught me that you have to be open to sharing your feelings, to sharing your emotions, and expressing what you are going through. So during that time, I had read this book. It was called Single on Purpose. And as I read this book, I started making videos. I started making, I was already making videos. I was making videos in 2021, but in 2022, like I really start making videos and start expressing myself, start opening up, start speaking about what I'm going through. And as I'm going through this particular pain, this particular problem, I recognized that I wasn't the only one experiencing it. I recognized that I wasn't the only one going through relationship problems, because it was ironic, Gary, it was ironic that the other people that I came encounter with, they had relationship problems too. So I'm like,
Yep.
I can't be the only one. And since I recognized I wasn't the only one, when I start to develop myself, I start to learn how to help others. The book Single on Purpose taught me how to be open to myself, how to learn myself, how to love myself, how to give love that I'm looking for. But first I have to give love to myself. So when I started developing personally, it came from my divorce, because my divorce taught me that when you start focusing on yourself, you start recognizing your trauma. Okay, when you recognize your trauma, what do you do when you trigger? Okay, when you're triggered, what do you do when you don't know how to respond? How do you communicate? You have to figure out so much about self. But in order to figure out self, you have to be willing to develop personally.
Wow, that is deep. And I want to say, we have so many young people across the world who are going through their own challenges in life. And because of the fact that, they are not exposed to mentor and coach and have that that support system that is helping them to develop personally, and many of them buckle, many of them fall. But as you talk, I about your book, which is Single on Purpose, it reminded me of a colleague many years ago, a hardworking individual, all about family, but then discover one day that his partner was being unfaithful to him, and ups and downs. It eventually ended up to that point where he approached me one day and he said, it has been a year now since I haven't been in a serious relationship, and I feel good about it. Feel good about it. And he started to list the reasons why he's feeling good. One, it's he's doing a lot of introspection, and two, it's helping him to find his strengths and weaknesses, and three, it's helping him to fully discover himself so he can live from that purpose-driven himself. So I do believe that what you're hinting on is so important. I think in life, it's the first love should be about self-love. I don't care who says selfish, because the reality is that if you don't learn how to love yourself, you really don't know how to love others. And sometimes loving others can be, pulling back sometimes. It's about easing off sometimes. It's about creating space sometimes. And I really love that you're deep into that personal development space. In terms of the business context and what you're doing at FIK and personal development, are you saying that you're leveraging your book and you're leveraging other content to touch and transform the lives of people who may or may not be going through personal challenges? Because personal development is not only for those who are going through a challenge. Personal development is for everyone.
Yes. You're right. So the book that I referenced, Single on Purpose, that's not my book, but I read it. I do have a book.
Oh,
The book that I have is called Master Your Mind, 10 Tips to Shift Your Mindset. But it came from learning the premise of self-love. You see, you mentioned something about selfless. I mean, I'm sorry. You mentioned something about selfish. You have to be selfish to love yourself so you can start being selfless. And so yes, you're right. Everyone can develop
yeah,
personally.
yeah, you're right. Because you can't, I mean, if your cup is empty because you're not pouring enough love into yourself, you have nothing to give because you have an empty cup,
And
right? You have an
how
empty
can you
cup.
pour anything?
Yeah. All right. You are also heavily into marketing. You're passionate about marketing. Your company, FIK Advertising Corp, you focus on this. Can we talk a little bit about the marketing aspect of what you do at FIK?
Absolutely. So, marketing to me is storytelling. Who you are as a person, what you do, what you have been through. When you're able to market yourself accordingly because you're willing to be vulnerable, you're able to connect with others that don't necessarily know how to speak about their issues, about their problems. And so, what I've learned just by really marketing myself or putting myself out there, not just on the internet, but just like in person in different conferences, different events, is that I'm not the only one going through a particular problem. Yet when I started to realize is that since I'm 25 years old and
Mhm.
my age necessarily doesn't define me, what it does, it helps me be in the room because I'm willing to communicate, I'm willing to ask, I'm willing to talk and speak to anyone. And this helped me market myself accordingly because I'm able to connect with others because I've been through different life experiences. I've been through different situations. I'm able to share my stories, be vulnerable, and say, I'm just like you. When I'm marketing, I'm saying I'm just like you because my stories is able to connect the dots to say we might not know each other, but we have a lot of similarities. Marketing is connecting with the people that can hear your story, that can resonate your story, and experience what you're going through, and understand what you're speaking on because they recently experienced or they are going through it. So marketing is just storytelling to share your story on how vulnerable you can be, and it's not vulnerability is not bad. Vulnerability is not isn't horrible. What it does is that it shows the real you to say that you're a human being. You're a human being just as much as the next person, but you overcame your problems. When you're able to market yourself, you have to be willing to market what you have overcame. To do that, you have to be willing to share your story, to be vulnerable, and continue to connect with people who don't know who you are, but they build a connection with you from the stories that you share.
That is pretty interesting perspective to look at marketing. But I love it because what you're doing, you're using your pain and your pleasure, your happiness and your success, and you build a story around that. And that's what you're using as your pull factors. Because one, people are able to identify with you because of the story. They have similar experiences. People are able to learn from your stepping stone towards success. And so that's something for them to say, hey, he's not just experimenting, he has lived this experience and he came out on the other side and he has his blueprint for success, whether it's success in personal development or success in podcasts or success in business. And you have a wealth of knowledge because you have walked that journey and you understand that the ups and downs and the bumps in the road. So that's a brilliant approach, experiential marketing and storytelling. And storytelling is a skill set, if you can truly harness the ability to communicate and the ability to sell through storytelling, you got a winning formula there. And I can tell you it's a skill set. It can take you quite some time to master the ability to tell stories. So kudos to you. We will do a quick go through today of your strengths. And as time progresses, we will take individual areas that you're looking at and do some other podcasts on them. Let's come to some of the juicy parts now. You have been a podcaster. Part of what you do at FIK, you provide podcasts and tips. But before I come to podcasts and tips, I want to link it back to an exceptional success that you have been able to attain for yourself. While you were in the Marine Corps, you took the time to produce over 800 podcasts. Talk to us about that. And then I want us to get into, what FIK does in terms of giving podcast tips. Let's come to that whole experience while in the Marine Corps, doing all of those podcasts. Man, that's a lot of work.
Yes, it's it's definitely a lot of work. It's definitely a lot of communication, a lot of talking, definitely a lot of talking. So yes, you say 800. 800 is a big number, but it started from one. I started with my first video. I started with my first podcast, and I remember I had went to this course. It was a guy named David Shins, the host of Social Proof Podcast. He had a course back in 2021, and during this time, I'm like, okay, like I want to learn more, but I don't know what more is. So I came across an ad that I had saw. It was like $197. It was $197 for this podcasting course, but I didn't have $197. Like I only had $100. And so my brother Malik, he was making videos. At the time, I didn't recognize that you can make different types of videos. I'm just thinking if you get a camera, get your phone and press record, then you can start, making videos. And so my brother, he was making videos. And so I just reached out to him. I was like, hey, bro, listen, there's this podcast course. It costs $197. I only have $100. I just need $99 or the remaining fee. So we can share the course together. We can watch it. I can see the videos. I can log in. We can both have access to it. So at the time, I didn't even have the money for it, but I knew it was something that I wanted to do. And so it started for me asking my brother for, hey man, can we go half on this course? Because the course is something that can be beneficial for both of us. I don't know if you want to do podcasting or, you're making videos. And what I recognized is that he said, yeah. He was like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, okay. So I went to the course, signed up for it, and I sent them all the information. Like, this is the login, this is the password, this is where you access the course. So when you have time, you just rewatch it. And so as I'm learning about podcasts, he was like, all you have to do is just start with one. You don't have to start trying to make 10 all at one time. You start with one video. You start with one episode. You start with one podcast. How do you continue to grow if you're trying to skip steps? So that's what I did. I had my computer at the time. My computer had no space on there. I don't know if you're used to making videos and making content, but your equipment matters. The computer I had, it was old. It was from 2011, and I bought it from, what is it called? eBay or something like that. It was a good computer. You said again?
That's a Stone Edge.
Yes. it was. It didn't even have no space.
Okay.
It used the space so quickly I wasn't even sure of it. But I used it. I started with one. And when I start producing podcast episodes, I started with one and I started not even being on camera. It was a voice podcast. I'm like, okay, I ain't gonna show my face. I'm just gonna try to talk. So I plugged in my microphone and I start speaking. I start talking. I start understanding that there's value here. Then I'm like, hold on, if I'm gonna share my voice, I might as well share what I look like. So now I'm using my phone, I'm using the microphone, I'm using what I have to not only share my message, but to start producing more. The stat that he gave, the stat that David Shands gave, he said that a lot of people that start podcasts stop at 5, like number 5. Excuse me, they stop producing at podcast number 5. They stop because it get hard. They stop because it's challenging. They stop because it's overwhelming. And what I recognize is that I just needed to get past 5. Once I get past 5, I can just continue to go along the process. And as I continue to go along the process, I'm able to learn more about myself. What I start to recognize is that when I was showing up, I wasn't showing up as myself during that time because I didn't know how to. I didn't know there was a thing. I didn't even know that it's okay to show up as you. I didn't know that. But as I continued to produce podcast episodes, it started from 1, but it went from 1 to 10. It went from 1 to 10 to 10 to 20. It went from 10 to 20 different episodes to 50 episodes. But I'm learning more about myself. I'm more confident in myself. There was one video that I created, and when I got on camera, because I was in the Marine Corps. As I'm in the Marine Corps, I remember one time I had took out our uniform. Our shirt was called a blouse. So I took out my blouse and I had my green military shirt on, or my green Marine Corps shirt on. So I took my blouse off, the camouflage off, and I went to go make a video. And in this video, it was about John Quincy Adams. I didn't know who John Quincy Adams was, but he said a good quote. I'm like, this quote is good. But when I read the quote, I tried to sound like someone else that was producing podcasts. I didn't try to sound like myself because I didn't know how to. But I was committed to the process. I was committed to the journey. I was committed to the work because I'm willing to do the work. I just need to continue just to keep showing up. As I continue to show up, it goes from 1 to 10, it goes from 10 to 100, it goes from 100 to 300, and it just continued to multiply because I don't stop. I don't stop producing podcast episodes because I done beat the stat. My whole life growing up, my mama said, son, you got 3 strikes against you, or 2 strikes against you. You're a male, you're an African American male, which means that the odds are stacked against you already. So you don't have the odds. Like, the odds are not in your favor. But how can you make the odds in your favor? Well, you get up and work every single day. You get up and work every single day, and no matter what, no matter the difficulties, when life hits you, you're not the only one that life is knocking down. But the ones that can get up are the ones that are the ones that what is called persevere. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
you
are
got
the
it.
ones that persevere.
10x Branding and Marketing LLC, powering the next generation of unicorns. At 10x B&M LLC, we specialize in market research, brand innovation, market integration, and client conversion optimization. Our team of experts is dedicated to providing the strategic insights and innovative solutions needed to accelerate growth and unlock your company's full potential. Whether you're a startup looking to attract investors and your ideal clients, or an established business ready for market expansion, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Let 10x Branding and Marketing LLC fuel your journey to exceptional business success. Contact us now for a free consultation on how we can position your business to become a unicorn.
What I like about what you're saying, because you did all of this, and I learned that you were knocked down a couple of times, in the sense that you were putting everything into the podcast and all of your resources. Listening to you, I can see and how passionate you are about podcasts. You were born to do podcasts. You were born to help others with podcasts. I can feel that passion. That is, you don't have a plan B. You have burned the bridge behind you. You have plan A. This is it. But I also learned that during your journey, you start to recognize that the passion behind what you're doing is not enough, and it's not enough. I want you to tell me a little bit about what that discovery was like for you, putting everything that you have into the podcast, recognizing that it is draining you financially, it is draining you in terms of your time and your effort, and that caused you to pivot, because I think from that point you pivot and you start to dig deeper into how to monetize your platform, and the rest is history. So talk to us us about what our experience was like coming to that point, recognizing, hey, it's good to have passion, but passion alone without a strong sense of direction towards monetization is not going to work. Talk to us about that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Passion is not enough. Passion is just a start to you figuring out what you would like to do. So here in 2024, January 2024, I started going to like business classes or business cohorts. And as I'm going to business cohorts, I'm learning more about business. I'm learning more about how to turn this passion into profit. But first, I have to figure out what the passion is, who I would like to serve, how I would like to go about helping them. But it's a process that you have to learn. Even though I was able to make videos, even though I was able to produce podcast episodes, I'm not just producing podcast episodes. This is a business. And so as I'm going through this business program called Action Zone, and it's a military veterans program to help new entrepreneurs start their business and grow their business. So as I'm going through the course, I'm learning about business. I'm learning about sales process. I'm learning about marketing. I'm learning about communication and finding your ideal customer. And so one time in one of the cohort classes, that was like, okay, now you have to go speak to your customers. I'm like, okay, ain't no speaking. I can speak to anybody. That ain't no problem to me. There was like, you have to go speak to your customers or speak to strangers and see if the questions that you have align with their problem. So I'm like, okay. At the time, it was around social media. So I was attending University of South Florida, and as I was attending University of South Florida, there's a whole bunch of people that I can speak to. So as I'm walking, I'm like, it was this one person I came up to. I was like, hey, do you mind if I just ask you 3 questions about social media? Is gonna be quick. I was like, yeah, no problem at all. So the first question I asked, I was like, okay, when was the last time you got on social media? That was like 2 minutes ago. I said, good. Oh, good. Okay. I think we're in the right direction. Okay. When you start using social media, was it for entertainment? Was it for business? Like, what did you get on social media for? That was like, because I'm bored, so I just want to scroll on social media. Okay, so for entertainment. Okay, then the last question I asked, like, when you're on social media, is there anything in particular that you're looking for? It was like, what do you mean? I'm like, is there anything like as far as entertaining videos, something that's informative? Is there anything in particular you're looking for, or you're just scrolling? Majority of the kids say I'm just scrolling. Okay, so I do that assignment, I do the homework because they said you got to go talk to your customers. And so when I start to recognize that social media was broad itself, because they kept saying that, so what do you do exactly? I kept getting the question of what do you do? I'm like, okay, I help people turn their views. Turn their views into sales. I'm helping people use social media to turn their views into sales.
And their sales into income.
Yes.
Got you.
Absolutely. And what I recognize is that there's so many different platforms. There's so many different details that go on with this. So social media is just huge. And what I recognize is that even though I started with social media, I'm like, okay, how can I continue to break down what I would like to do? How can I continue to narrow down who I would like to help? How can I continue to even identify who and what and how I go by helping them? So the reason why I say 893 videos that I produced, over 893 podcast episodes, is because I'm in the podcasting space, because I've created a lot of different podcasts. And since I'm in the podcasting space, I help entrepreneurs start their podcast. But it wasn't this clear back in January 2024. So it taught me that even though you have a passion, even though you have a direction, even though you have a path, you have to find a way to turn this direction, path, and passion into money, into profit, because it's coming out your money. Like, I'm funding everything. So I started to learn how to be more narrow on who I would like to help and how I can go by helping them.
2 things you've mentioned, and I want to talk a little bit about them. The last word is that you want to be narrow, and I want to say that's a brilliant move. Why? I've just released 11th volume of one of our book titled Master the Sales Communication Process, and one of the things that we introduced in the very first chapter is the MVO, minimum viable offer. Why we did this? Because of the fact that we see many rising stars in business. As you go to market, you have so many ideas and you're excited about all of the ideas, but guess what? You have limited human resources, limited technical resources, and limited capital resources to even move one project forward. But here you are looking at 5 projects that you want to go to market. So when you narrow it down, just like what you said, you're able to put all of your human, technical, and capital resources into the minimum viable offer. And that is likely once you apply yourself in the right way, you're likely to make great things happen. So I want to really commend you for that. The next point that you've made, and I want to talk a little bit about it, because I'm happy that you were exposed to training that really helped you to understand how to identify the ideal client. You missed out our program last week. I'm looking for you in that program this Saturday. I'm holding you to this. Right. Because it's so important. One of the things that we see is that many rising stars to get into business and they don't have a clear understanding of who's the ideal client. And what we see happen very often in our programs and as we interface with people, we ask, who's your ideal client? And some may say males and some may say female and some may say youth. But I would say, is that all? Because that is not a clear definition of who is your ideal client. There is the biodata marker of the ideal client. And if you don't understand the biodata marker, you could be innovating products and services. You could be providing products and services and positioning that product and service in front of all of the wrong people. But you don't know because you don't have the biodata marker of the ideal client. And then guess what happened? Because you're innovating, you're positioning products and services in front of the wrong people, you don't get the sale. And when you don't get a sale, what happens to the business? It sets the business up for failure and it sets you up for frustration. So there's a right and wrong way in, how to start and scale a business. And I'm so happy that you're talking about that subject matter. As time progresses, perhaps we can do a deeper sub-program on that to really help the audience to get a much better, clearer understanding as to how important it is to narrow what you're doing, especially as a startup, and to invest everything you got into identifying the ideal client. So I love what you would have said there. Let us talk a bit about monetization. You have broken the barrier, because I also want to say that for many podcasters, and we have millions of podcasters across social media today, when it comes at even looking at YouTube, I do believe the record is showing that we have a very small fraction of the billions of persons who is on YouTube who actually get to monetize in a significant way. But you did it. So talk to us a little bit about monetization and how all of that meant to you, because that could seriously bruise your ego, doing something consistently. And one of the ultimate play is cash flow optimization, but you're not just getting there. So you have broken those barriers. So let's talk a little bit about it.
Absolutely. So on October 1st of 2024 this year, I'm doing a 90-day challenge to go from $0 to $100,000. And the reason why I'm doing this challenge is because, one, I want to show the process. I want to show behind the scenes. I want to show what it takes to get to $100,000. The reason where this challenge came from, because have you ever heard of Grant Cardone?
Yeah, man. Grant Cardone, I know a lot of Grant Cardone. I've spoken with Grant Cardone in rooms and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So, he's a phenomenal marketer. He's a phenomenal businessman. So I had watched a challenge that he did with Undercover Billionaire. In 90 days, he took a business from $0 to $1 million. And he took the business to $5.5 million within 90 days. And so as I'm watching this challenge, I'm like, okay, if he can do it and he understands how to do it, well, granted, he's been in business for a lot longer than I have. What makes me different? And I'm thinking, like, what makes me different if I can try to do something similar on that? Probably won't be to that level just yet. But what if I start from $0 to $100,000, showing the process, showing how to communicate to customers, how to find your customers, how to follow up with your customers, how to sell your customers, what to sell your customers. Like, what if I start from $0 and work all the way up to $100,000? Not only would I be able to show the process from going from nothing to something, it would be a whole process behind it, because it will show that when you have an ideal customer and when you want to serve a specific problem, when you serve this specific problem, now you can, rather than being narrow, you can expand yourself just a little bit, because the problem that you're focused on is more narrow. There's another book called Focus on the Problem, Not the Solution. And recently I start to pay attention to, I'm like, so how does so many people have so many different businesses? Like, how's that even possible? Grant Cardone said he had 15 different businesses. I'm like, how? You're one person. Like, how do you have that many businesses? And then I start to pay attention, like, oh, you're solving different problems. There's different problems that you're solving, but one business solved one problem. And it made sense to me. So the problem that I'm solving, that a lot of people want to start podcasting, but a lot of people are not familiar with the format. A lot of people are not familiar on how to be consistent. A lot of people are struggling with finding topics to speak about. So the problem that I want to solve, I've been through it. I've been through it because, mind you, you said in the introduction, I've created over 800 different podcast episodes. So I know what it's like to start at ground level one and not even produce any. I want to have this idea. I want to make a difference. I want to help others. Or I have this passion, I have this thought. But where do I start? If I can go from $0 to $100,000, not only am I showing the process, but I'm showing that you can do it if you understand who and what problem you are solving.
Great share. I follow Grant Cardone for a little bit now, and I recognize that he had humble beginning. I learned at young, I think he lost his dad, and he started to, live a life of consuming substances, which affected his life. And I heard he talk about that story where he was attacked by his friends, and that literally changed his whole perspective and his trajectory in life. And he then went into to real estate. I think I either followed that from one of his podcasts, but I've also sat in many rooms, clubhouse rooms, and he's always on Clubhouse. He's always popping in the room and adding his own flavor to what real estate and money making it's all about. So I do believe that he is one of the stories who, from trials to triumph into a mega business today, because I do believe that he has grown his business into a multi-billion-dollar operation. So kudos to him. I don't necessarily agree with all of his techniques and his style, but it's working for him. So that's a clear establishment that there's a multiple of methods and approaches to achieve the end results. I'm also happy that his story would have inspired you, because if he can move from $1, I know the challenge that he has, the undercover boss, and along those lines, he had a challenge to take $1 and flip $1 into major money making move. And I'm happy that you're also inspired to do that. How is that working out for you? Is that something that you're working on 2024 going to 2025?
Yeah, so recently, it's September now. I've recently started thinking about it probably around the beginning of September, but I was hesitant to start talking about it, to start putting it out there, to start talking about, like, I'm going from $0 to $100,000. And I was nervous because now I'm talking about money. Like, $100,000 is a lot of money because I didn't come from nothing. I came from a single mom who raised 3 boys by herself, and $100,000, like, we ain't talking about no money like that. You know what I mean? So I was nervous to put it out online, to put myself out there, to say, I want to do this challenge, but as I'm doing this challenge, so I can not only prove it to myself, but I can show, like, it's possible, because I'm from a small town. I didn't really see people who had money like that, or in fact, I didn't really know what money looked like. Let's put it like that. I didn't know what money looked like because I wasn't around it. And so now that I'm older, now that I've gone to different events, like Grant Cardone was the first billionaire that I ever met. Like, how's that even possible? Because he's putting himself out there. And so
you're saying a whole lot, and I just want to tap in a little bit. I do believe that it's so important very early in life to get as much exposure as possible to financial intelligence. I see that there's so many young people today, they struggle to understand money. They struggle to understand how it works. And they also struggle with the belief that they too can be blessed to be financially independent. And I could recall I wrote about this many years ago in one of my books. And I said that people can never grow beyond their sense of self. Your sense of self is what is accountable for where you are right now. Your sense of self is what is accountable for where you're going to be in the near and distant future. So you really have to work on your sense of self. And sometimes you're not able to do this by yourself. But it makes sense, to follow a simple clue. There's a story that says, you are the equivalent of the 5 persons you associate with. Well, there's so much truth in that. My advice is to many young people in rising stars, start connecting with big thinkers and big movers. And sometimes it may cost you to get into their company, but the consequence of doing all of that is going to be so significant. I've listened to you talk about $100,000 and you say it's a lot of money. It's not a lot of money. All right. But I understand what you're saying. It is a lot of money for the average person because you've never seen this. I mean, the majority of the people in the world, you have been on that paycheck to paycheck cycle. So money never accumulates. I mean, in your lifetime, in your work, you would have earned more than $100,000, but you have never really seen the physical manifestation of all of that in one strategic location. So there's a lot of work that has to be done in that regard. And I love what you're doing. All right, I love what you're doing. However, I have two more things that I want us to really dive into. You talk a bit about your short-term vision. You want to support podcasters to simplify their processes. All right, and doing a podcast is not the easiest thing. As a podcaster, you got to set the cameras up, you got to do the recording, you got to do the edit, you got to do the thumbnails, you got to do the upload, you got to do the SEO. It's a lot of moving parts to make this thing really work. And even when you finish all of that, you have to take the time to really understand that, hey, the algorithm don't always work in your favor, and you got to push the algorithm in your favor. And there's where you might got to go do some investment into marketing and into promotion and into all of these moving parts to make this thing happen. So talk to us about why this is one of your short-term passion to simplify the process for podcasting.
Because I was there. I was there when I was struggling. I was there when I didn't have no idea of what it takes to be and have a good production and have a good conversation and to know how to guide the conversation. Like I was there because I wanted to start a podcast. I wanted to follow my passion. I want to make a difference, but making the difference can only go so far by the amount of money you have. So it's not the fact that you're not good. It's just the fact that you have to get good so you can turn the good into a business. So simplifying the podcasting is difficult. It's overwhelming. Just like you mentioned, something about thumbnails, something about the description, the SEOs, the marketing, the advertising, the promotion. Like it's a lot of moving parts that goes into podcast creation or podcast production, but it can be created from one step at a time. It can be produced one step at a time. You just have to understand what you're producing at that time, at that moment. And I went to a conference back in January of 2023. And when I went to this conference, it was a guy named Eric Thomas. He's a motivation speaker. He's speaking for a long time. And so as I'm in this conference, he proceeds to say, don't compare don't compare your start to my 20-year experience. Don't compare where you are at to where I've been because I've been doing it longer than you. And that matters because there's a gap that you have to see that you can't be and have and create 800 different podcast episodes if you haven't even created one, if you haven't even created two, if you even don't understand where to start. Starting is so scary because how do you start and you know this is going to work? How do you start this and you know that it's something that you would like to do? It's scary. So I want to simplify the starting phase and show that when you start, this is why you're starting. Then when you start, this is who you want to connect with. When you're starting, this is who you can help. This is how you can help them. But identifying that is where we start.
Love your process. What I want us to briefly look at is your process and your gain. One of the things that I say is make business make sense. Make business make sense. And what I want us to look at in America today, it's very expensive. It's very expensive. And to be an independent entrepreneur and doing your thing, what is an average cost for you to charge a podcaster for this to help a podcaster for this type of business to make sense to you?
So the average cost is $497, and it's for coaching, for mentorship, and guiding. And the reason being is because if you want to learn from someone who has the experience, okay, now you have to learn and be willing to pay for someone who's willing to give the experience. Because what this to do is it'll help you be it'll help you start on a better path and better direction.
I like that. But even as we go into podcasts, we talk about the mechanics after the production would have been done. And there's another, important concepts to look at even before the production is done, because, before you produce the content, you want to know who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to know if it makes sense to talk to that target market. You want to know the best way to communicate the information, or you have all of the skills to communicate the information in the right way to appeal to your target market. And these are some soft skills. And if you don't master these soft skills, you can lose the entire audience base, because guess what? Instead of incorporating storytelling, instead of incorporating motivational, concepts, you sound like an intellectual giant. And sometimes that intellectual muscle does not always work with the ideal client. So there's so much that actually goes into this process, and I really admire you, the work that you're doing in this regard, to really reach podcasters and providing your substance to help transform their life. I like you also because you're a big thinker, because I'm looking at your data and I'm seeing that, hey, Terrell Humphrey, Marine Corps veteran, Terrence Humphrey, the brain behind FIK, and FIK stands for failure is knowledge. Terrell Humphrey, the great mind. You also you don't want to touch 100 podcasters. You don't want to touch 200 podcasters. You don't want to touch 100,000 podcasters. You want to touch 1 million video podcasters and truly make impact in their lives. And I think that's great. That is great. That tells me that now that some of the Walmart ideology is rubbing off on you, because you see yourself having a big clientele base, like Walmart. And I think that's the way we need to train our mind to think. One of the great things that we learn, so as a man thinketh, so is he. So if you think in lack and limitation, doubts and fear, that's where you're going to manifest. But if you think in abundance and greatness, and you see yourself as being great and being, entitled to achieve these great things, you're going to achieve it. The mind gives you exactly what you say you want to accomplish. So I love that. But talk to us about this big vision as we begin to wrap up today's program. Talk to us about this big vision. Do you think that we have a big pool, enough of podcasters for you to draw upon?
So yes, I do. I do want to hit on. You said million, but I want to help 1 billion with the B people.
Hats off to you, Marine. Marine Corps veteran. Hats off to you.
So to go in depth with the question, so there's a book by Donald Trump. I don't follow politics or really into the politics, anything of that nature.
Yeah.
But there's a book that Donald Trump wrote, and it was called The Art of the Deal. And the first page, the first book, like the cover book, as soon as you open it, it has some words on right to the left before you even start the book. In the beginning, it says, "If you're going to dream, why not dream big?" I said, that's all I need to know. I didn't even finish the book, Gary. I put the book away because I read that one sentence. If you're going to dream, why not dream big? And so when I start to learn that it takes the same amount of effort to dream small, just to dream big, because you have to change what you're thinking. You have to change how you're thinking and what you think about yourself. 1 billion people is a lot of people. Okay, you asked the question about, do you think the podcast space is big enough? Probably not big enough in podcasting, but what about financial space? What about the insurance space? What about the construction space? There's a lot of people that's starting podcasts. It's not just in one particular area. People have experience. People have different stories. So now that I'm narrow on the problem that I solve, I can expand that to help 1 billion people.
No, I love that. And what I want to say on all that you're saying is that I do believe that people are socialized to think small. People are normalized into thinking small. People are programmed to downregulate their great potential. I know this because I'm a deep researcher, and I have age and experience on my side, right? So I can talk from all of that. I've studied a lot in these fields. And every time I look at a concept that we call the self-image theory, it talks about people and 4 selves. We are trapped in the ideal self, and we are trapped in the looking glass self, and we are trapped in the self-image. And very often the self-image, if it's not healthy, it's going to defeat you. And I love talking about being trapped in the real self, because that's the self that you want to be trapped in, the real you. You talk about your story early on. You were doing all of these podcasts, and you were, trying to do it in a way to, come across in a certain way, and it just did not reflect you. So it was all about the artificial flavors that was covered into the podcast. The audience wasn't getting the juicy you that likes to talk about story. I can see you, the storyteller, right? You worked hard here. And now that you have mellowed into the real you, that's the side that you want to really mature and, amplify across the world. But in most cases, people will say, shut that side down, shut that big thinking side down. But what I've learned is that when you begin to connect with your real self and you're able to flow in your true essence and your true substance, there is where the magic begins to take place, because the real you is only limited by you. All right. And what I would say to people is that you can make a decision right here and right now that you want to turn a new chapter in your life, regardless of what happened to you in the past. All of that is crap. All right. I put it down to experience. You still have power over your presence and you still have power over your future. But you got to make a decision like the Marine Corps, that I'm going to take this crap in my hand and I'm going to mold it and I'm going to shape it and I'm going to make it what I want it to be. Not what society wants it to be, what I want it to be. And I do believe that when we put ourselves in that position of strength to take control of who we are in our life is where the magic begins to take place. And I mean, when you listen to your colleague, Grant Cardone, I mean, he talked a lot about the naysayers, the people that want to beat him down. I'm shutting down. I've been in the room and, the people cuss Grant out, but Grant don't care a swat, Grant said, that's your opinion. Your opinion of me doesn't matter. My opinion of me matters because I'm flowing in my real essence. So I think that is something perhaps in your personal development program. Man, we got some talking to do, right? Because I want to, we're going to talk, we're going to do some collabs. And I do believe that we can make some great things happen. But I love your platform. So Terell, before we wrap things up, I want to put the ball in your court. You're the basketball player. So I want you to give me your last dribble, your last loop and hit this thing. What are the last thing that you want to share with the public just before we wrap up today?
Don't be afraid to start. Don't be afraid to start with what you have, because what you have is enough. And then as you continue along your journey, you start to learn what matters the most and how you can improve, how you can turn your passion into a business. So that way your business can fund your passion.
I love that. Do you mind if I add one more thing to it?
Absolutely.
I think you said it also. Don't be afraid of failing. And in your acronym, failure is knowledge. So I bring it back. Don't be afraid of failing. Just don't stay down. Get up. Every time you fail, get up. Rise again. Get up. My friend, I mean, this has been a tremendous joy talking with you. And I want to say this, this conversation here today has not represented half of the things that I wanted us to go into. But we're going to stop here for now so we can keep the audience in some suspense of what is to come next. And we'll definitely take some time out to do part 2 of this interview so we can keep whetting the public appetite with, who Terell is all about and how Terell planned to, not only touch 1 million, but 1 billion person in the podcast space. And to just add a little bit to what you're saying, there is a platform that we see on social media, and those guys are doing well. I think they have built out the podcast over the last 7 to 8 years. I think they have about over 3 million followers on podcast on their platform, and I do believe that there's tremendous possibility in reaching podcasters not only on YouTube but across multiple platforms. We'll talk some more about that. Terell, again, tremendous pleasure talking with you, and I'm definitely looking forward to doing this with you in the near future.
Gary, I appreciate you for having me. Your platform is amazing. You are inspiring many, and when they learn from you, they see your experience, they see your growth, and they see your passion. So Gary, keep doing what you're doing, because even if you're speaking to one person, you're making a difference.
You're perfectly correct. Perfectly. One create that ripple effect, right?
Pitch Deck 101 LLC out of New York do more than just support our clients to pitch their businesses to investors access working capital at 0% APR. We also support our clients to grow and scale their businesses faster and cash flow optimize. Pitch Deck 101 LLC recent partnership with 10X Branding Marketing LLC and Global Capital Inc. out of the USA has enabled us to form unique partnership with multiple financial institutions, which means we can do even more to accelerate the success of our clients. Let Pitch Deck 101 LLC give you the support you need to pitch to investors, access capital, access new markets and grow and scale your business. Contact us now on 332-235-1099 for a free consultation.